the journey of use of chemotherapy has started in a reverse fashion. Initially, we tried chemotherapy in metastatic settings. We saw it that it is going to increase the lifespan. Then our second aim was, once our lifespan has increased, it should be quality of lifespan. So in quality of lifespan, we tried to preserve organs. Especially, our major concern was deglutition, speech, and voice, and olfaction to some extent. Unfortunately, in oropharynx or in oral cavity, induction chemotherapy has not yielded that results. Only favorable trial, which is a VLC trial, that has worked for only larynx, because the most feared iatrogenic complication for larynx was loss of voice box. And many patients won't turn up because they would lose their speech. They would say like that, let me live 6 months shorter than my actual lifespan, but I don't like to go for a life without a voice box. So it has helped almost in 54% of cases to preserve the larynx without compromising survival. Though a small trial has shown a 2% of survival benefit, even in larynx also. But in oropharynx, it has not helped to preserve tongue, to avoid hemiglossectomy or total glossectomy. It has not helped to preserve our larynx or pharynx part. So this has not worked in oropharynx.
Any more questions? I would like to request our chairpersons to kindly honor Dr. Rajiv Gupta. Please, sir.
The last speaker for today is Dr. Ravi Mahajan. He's the head of the Department of Plastic and Microvascular Surgery, Amandeep Hospital, and also the Program Director of DNB Plastic Surgery at Amandeep Hospital. Sir shall talk on the reconstructive options in head and neck cancer.
First of all, my thanks are due to Professor Bulk, Professor Sandhu and Amit for giving me this opportunity to be part of this symposium. So just like the plastic surgeon or the reconstructive surgeon comes at the end, once the surgeon has finished the excision part, so mine is probably the last lecture. And I will straightway come to my topic. Once the excision has been done, so what are the reconstructive options we have? So wherever possible, we should try to close the defect directly. And then if it is a defect which is relatively superficial, you can cover it with a simple skin graft, which may be split thickness graft or a full thickness graft. Then in certain situations, for small defects, we can use a composite graft also, which I will be talking about later. And then we have flaps. Whenever you have a deeper defect or you have a full thickness defect, so you will need 1 or 2 flaps for the reconstruction. And these flaps can be either local flaps or they can be regional flaps, or you can bring a flap from a distance with its vascularity intact. Or you can use a free microvascular flap, which means that you detach the flap from one part of the body and then take it to the recipient area and bring its vascularity by doing the microvascular anastomosis. So, just to give you an idea about the direct repair is only possible where the defect is very small, and this is a case where we have just removed one of the benign lesions. You can see this is just a cyst which has been removed in a V fashion, and we have just closed it directly. So while we are doing that, we must make it sure that the cosmetic result is very good, because this is the most prominent part of the face, and the most important thing is that your white line that should be properly aligned. Now this method can be used depending upon what is the size of the defect, what is the local availability of the skin. The same defect you may be able to close in the old age, but it may not be possible to do it in a younger age, because in an old age the local availability of the loose skin which is available to you for doing a direct repair, that is much more than what you will have in a younger patient. And then another very important consideration is that while you are doing the direct repair, you may be distorting some area. For example, if your defect is say near the angle of the mouth or near the eyelid, then the direct repair may lead to distortion of that part. So these are the considerations which you have to have while doing a direct repair. Another very important consideration while closing a defect in a direct fashion, that your scar must lie in what is known as relaxed skin tension lines. You know, these are the lines in which all of us will develop wrinkles at a later age. So your scar should fall in that. So when you plan your excision and then the direct repair, so it should always be, preferably be in the line of these relaxed skin tension lines. And these wrinkles which we see, or these lines which we see, they are usually present at right angle to the line of action of the muscles. This is how these wrinkles develop. And they indicate more vascularity of the tissue at right angles to the line of wrinkles, thus allowing closure of an ellipse which is designed to lie along the wrinkles. And the closure is simple. You just have to close the subcutaneous layer and then the skin. And wherever the muscle has also been taken away, then you must repair the muscle also properly. So now coming to the free skin grafts. Skin grafts can be either full thickness skin grafts or split thickness skin graft. Graft you can apply on a bed which is well vascularized and which is healthy. Only then you can apply a graft. You cannot put it directly over the bone or over the cartilage. So it has to be a well vascularized bed where you can put that. Full thickness graft consists of the whole of the thickness of the skin when you are taking the complete thickness, epidermis as well as the dermis. And the common donor areas which are used for this are the post-auricular region, supraclavicular region, groin, and they can be used only for small defects so that the donor area can be closed directly. When you will take the graft, you will have to close it. And it is very important to defat this graft before you just put it there. The cosmetic results, particularly in the head and neck region, they are much better than the split thickness graft when you are using a full thickness graft. But at the same time, as I said, that this can be used only if the defect is very small. And this is just to show you the common areas. This is the post-auricular region, which is the commonest, because this gives you a very good color as well as the texture match, and you can then close it directly. Then you can take it from the groin area also, but then the color match is not going to be as good. And as I said, it is very important that you defat it properly. Only then you are going to have a good take-up of the graft, because as far as skin grafts are concerned, whether it is a full thickness graft or a split thickness graft, it is going to have its vascularity developing from the bed. So if it is a very thick tissue, then it may not get vascularized and you may have the loss of the graft. So that is why it's important to defat it. And these are some of the rare sites. You can sometimes take very small graft, particularly in the old age group, from the upper eyelid also and from the pre-auricular area also. Then next is the split thickness graft. Split thickness graft, you will have entire thickness of the epidermis but only a part of the dermis. So depending upon that, this can be either a thin graft, medium graft, or it can be a thick graft. But you can cover large areas with the split thickness graft. The reason being that from wherever you take the graft, that area is going to heal by itself, by whatever epidermal elements which are left behind. So it is going to heal on its own. So you need not close it as you need to do in the full thickness graft. And the cosmetic result is usually not as good as you will have it in a full thickness graft. So on the face, we try to use the full thickness graft wherever possible, or sometimes for that reason we may use the local flaps also. And it, as I said earlier, it cannot be used for the bare bone or the cartilage. though healthy periosteum or perichondrium will take up the graft. If the periosteum is healthy or the perichondrium is healthy, then you can put it over that. This is just to show how you take the split thickness graft, and this area, donor area, is going to heal by itself, and you can take large amount of the graft. Coming to the composite graft consists of skin, mucosa and cartilage. So in addition we have the cartilage also, and it is usually taken either from the ear or from the nasal septum. And in this case, whereas in the skin graft the vascularization takes place from the bed, but in the case of composite graft the vascularization takes place from the margins. So that is why this you cannot use a very large composite graft, because from the margin the plasmatic circulation which is there initially for 48 hours, that can travel only up to 0.5 centimeter, which means that the largest composite graft which you can take from the margins is not more than 1 centimeter when the vascularization is developing from both the sides. So this is an example of the composite graft which has been used for a alar defect. So this is a defect of the alar, and this is the template which has been made, and then you take it from the ear and put it over here, and this is the composite graft which has been used, and this is very commonly used actually for small defects of the alar. And it is important that whenever you do a composite graft, you must do some cooling of the part also, or it should be done during the winter season when it is an elective case. Now coming to the flaps, the difference from the skin graft is that here you have the full thickness skin along with the subcutaneous tissue also. In case of skin flap, when you include the deep fascia, then you will call it fasciocutaneous flap, and when you include the muscle, you will call it musculocutaneous flap, or you can take only muscle, or you can take bone also along with the skin. So depending upon what are the components of the flap, so these are the different kind of flaps. Then talking about the local flaps can be either advancement flap, transposition flap, rotation flap, or a limb bug flap. This is how the advancement flap is. This is again can be used only for small defects and where you have a lot of loose skin available in the adjacent area. So again, in head and neck region, I'll say that this is useful in old age, where you can you use it for small defects of the nose, and you can transpose the skin without creating any kind of a defect. So you may have to excise small triangle at the base, which is also known as Burroughs triangle. Then transposition flap is when you are have a triangular defect and you can just transpose it from the side. So this is not in fact very commonly used on the head and neck region. The reason being that you have to skin graft this area, and skin graft, as I said, doesn't give a very good cosmetic result. Then coming to the rotation flap. Rotation flap is when you are using a larger amount of the adjacent skin to rotate it into the defect, and most of the time we are able to get away without putting any skin graft over here, because there is a redistribution of the whole of the skin into this entire area. So this is what is the rotation flap, and here again you may sometimes have to give a back cut, or you may have to excise a triangle near the base. So this is an example of limb bug flap. This is quite commonly used in the head and neck region. This is the defect is made in the form of a rhomboid, where you have an angle of 60 degree here and 120 degree here, and this is the short diagonal. This short diagonal you extend on both the sides, and this way you can have an option of 4 flaps. So one is this and these 4 flaps. So what you have to see is that what is the most suitable flap in that particular situation, because say if I am raising a flap from here, so then I might cause the distortion of the eyelid. Similarly, if I am raising from here, then I might have a problem with the alar getting distorted. So you have to see that which flap is going to be the most suitable in that particular situation, and you should have extra amount of the skin also available in that direction. So this is just an example of a limb bug flap which has been used in this case. And this is the post-op result. Then another very commonly used flap in the head and neck region is the glabellar flap, particularly for the medial canthal defects. And this is a rectangular flap which is placed vertically in the glabellar region, And you can see the example of the glabellar flap here. This is the defect which we have to cover, and this is the glabellar flap which has been taken, and you are able to close it. And here in the midline of the forehead, actually a lot of extra skin is available even in the younger patients also, whereas it's never a problem as far as the older individuals are concerned. And another local flap which is quite commonly used is a nasolabial flap. This can be either superiorly based or it can be inferiorly based flap. As you can see here, this is a superiorly based flap, and here you have inferiorly based flap, and this is getting its blood supply from the branches of the facial artery. And here you can see that the nasolabial flap has been used for floor of the mouth. So two flaps have been used for small defects on the floor of the mouth, and it is very commonly used for the alar defects also. So another example of local flaps, this is a bilobed flap. When you this is the defect, and you take a flap from here and close it, and then take another flap and then bring it here, and you are able to close this completely. Forehead flap is another commonly used. You can call it either a local flap or a regional flap. In fact, it's more of regional flaps. This can be a flap which is raised from the midline of the forehead. So you can completely close it, and this is very commonly used for nose reconstruction. And one which is used to be used quite commonly earlier for head and neck reconstruction for the cancer was the forehead flap, which is based on the anterior branch of the superficial artery, and you raise a full flap from here, which is based on the anterior branch of the superficial temporal vessel. And in this case, this has been used both for lining as well as cover. So it has been folded on itself and with a strip of de-epithelialized tissue in between, and this is how the defect of the cheek that has been reconstructed with this, and you graft the donor area over here. So this was just a general description about the various reconstructive procedures which can be done. So now I will be touching some particular areas, and coming to the lip reconstruction. If a defect has been created after excision for the lip, if it is a defect of only say up to 1/3 of the lip, you can directly close it. So if your defect is up to 1/3, you can directly close it without much deformity, and this can be either done in a V fashion or it can be done in a W fashion. So in this case, the lesion was excised in a V fashion, and we were able to close it directly. And while closing it, you close it in 3 layers. You have to close mucosa. Muscle alignment is very important, and then you have to close the skin. And here, as I said earlier also, to have a good cosmetic effect, it is very important to align the white line properly. Otherwise, you will have a cleft ladder sort of deformity. And this is a W excision, so which still gives quite good result, and it is more so if your defect is little bigger, so you can do it in W fashion. When your defect of the lip is more than 1/3, you can use classic Gillies fan flap, or you can use Karapentzik flap, or Bernard operation and modifications are there. This is just to show you this fan flap, which is also known as Gillies fan flap, where the tissues they are mobilized from here to close the defect. This defect is more than 1/3, and this is known as Gillies fan flap. But this is a non-sensitive flap, and there has been a further modification which is known as Karapentzik flap, and here you just take care of some of the the nerves also, which are kept intact to make it sensate. And this way you can close the larger defects, though these do cause some amount of microstomia, but still they are able to treat themselves. So similarly in the upper lip also, you can do for up to 1/3, you can do V excision and then direct repair, and more than 1/3 you can use the Abbe flap. So this is Abbe flap is a flap which is taken from the lower lip, and this is based on one of the inferior labial arteries, and this is the small pedicle. The inferior labial artery is providing circulation. After 3 weeks, then you divide it, and this is flap is actually quite good for the upper lip defects which are more than 1/3. Then you can use the advancement techniques also. As you can see in this case, the upper lip defect that has been excised in a rectangular fashion, and then after excising this periolar excision, eccentric periolar excision, you can just advance this area and then close it. this is an example of Gillies fan flap, which can again be used for the upper lip also. And if you have a defect which is much more major, then you may have to take care of both the lining as well as the cover. So this is very important. Whenever you are doing any kind of a reconstruction, you have to see what are your reconstruction requirements. So if it is a full thickness defect, then you will use neat lining as well as the cover also. And if it involves mandible or maxilla, then you will need bone also. So in this case, when the defect will be major, you will need both lining as well as the cover. And you can use, in this case, either a combination of nasolabial flap and forehead flap, or you can use a visor flap. Visor flap is a flap which is taken from the scalp, particularly in males for making the mustaches. Then DP flap can also be used, and you can use a free flap also. So I'll just show you the example of this is a flap which has been used for reconstruction of the. This is a carcinoma of the upper lip. So after this has been excised, wide excision has been done. Then reconstruction was done by this double flap. This is part of the forehead flap, which is this is the forehead flap, and this is the flap taken from the scalp. These combination of two flaps is based on one vessel only, that is the superficial temporal vessel. This flap is coming from the anterior branch of the superficial temporal artery, and this is on the parodial vessel. So the lining was made with one flap, and then the cover was given with the other flap. So this way we were able to give him even the mustaches also. So this is also known as Narayan flap. Now if the defect is still bigger, as it was in this case, when the whole of the lip that was excised, then you can use radial forearm flap. This is a flap which has been taken from the radial forearm. And then the vessels have been exposed to the facial artery and the facial vein here, and at the same time supraomoid neck dissection has also been done. If you have a defect at the angle of the mouth, so small defects, they can be closed directly again, but if it is a bigger defect, then you can use what is known as Abbe Istolender flap. This is a flap which is actually taken from the just like Abbe flap is taken from the angle. So this is from where the blood supply is coming. You just rotate it down and then put it into this defect. And in fact, in Istolender Abbe flap, you need not divide it also, as you need to divide it in the Abbe flap. So this is an example of that, where the V-shaped excision has been done, and then the flap has been taken from here. As you can see here, this is the Abbe flap, and this has been rotated down. So this was about the lips. So now coming to the eyelids, whenever a tumor has been excised from the eyelids, if it is a partial thickness defects, and if it is less than 50%, you might be able to close it with primary closure by doing the local tissue advancement, or you can use a full thickness graft also. So, or full thickness graft, you can take it from the upper eyelid, or you can take it from the post-auricular area, or sometimes you can use what is known as supraorbital flap. This is a Fricke flap, and Trippier flap is a bipedical flap which is taken from the other eyelid. Coming to the full thickness defects, as I said, the lip, that you can close directly the 1/3 of the defect. In the eyelids, you can close directly the 1/4 of the defect without any other maneuver. But if you do the cantholysis, which means that cutting the lateral canthus over here, then you can close even up to 1/3 also directly. As you can see in this case, that this 1/3, almost 1/3 of the defect, that has been closed simply by doing the lateral cantholysis. And this is a flap. If your defect is bigger than that, you will use what is known as this is Stenzel flap, which is based on the medial side, and you can use it for the upper eyelid also. This kind of a flap. This is if you have still bigger defect, then this is known as what is known as Hughes procedure, which means you take a tarsoconjunctival flap from here, and then you just put a full thickness graft over that. And after 3 weeks, then you just divide it, and you will have a full thickness graft over the tarsoconjunctival flap which has been taken from there. So you can use this flap for bigger defects. Another very commonly used flap is a rotation advancement flap, which is also known as Mustardi flap. So this is the effect which we have at the lower eyelid, which may involve, in fact, whole of the lower eyelid, and then you can rotate it. And in old age, in fact, you should be able to close this primarily by simply redistribution of the skin. So similarly, in the upper eyelid reconstruction also, the same things apply more or less. And I'll just show you, this is an example of direct closure which has been done. And this is a tensile flap which is used for the upper eyelid. So this can be used for the lower eyelid as well as the upper eyelid also. And this is what I was talking about, the Hughes flap. So same way this can be used. This is patellar beard flap, is another type of a flap which is used for the eyelid reconstruction. I think I will not go into the details of that. Here actually you are taking the skin flap over here and you are using the composite graft of the nasal septum, which will form your conjunctiva, and the skin flap will go from here. So coming to the nose, small defects you can close with a direct repair, whereas if it is a superficial defect, you can cover it with a graft. Or as I said, for alar margin, for smaller defects, you can use composite grafts, or you may have to use the flaps. Flaps you can use either local flap, forehead flap, or a tree flap. So this is a local flap which has been used. So this is, you just advance it downwards, and you will be able to close it directly over here. This is an example of forehead flap which has been used for basal cell carcinoma, a large defect over here, and we have used the forehead flap for reconstructing this defect. This is an example of squamous cell carcinoma. Wide excision has been done by Dr. Google here, as you can see, and we need a large flap to cover it. So this is a flap which has been used, and then after 3 weeks you just divide it. And you can see that this gives a very good color as well as the texture match, and you can hardly make out that any tissue has been used. And similarly, the donor area has been closed directly, and there is hardly any scar you can make out. So these flaps are actually do very well. So if you need a much bigger flap, then you can put a tissue expander, particularly those people who have a small forehead. But then, this will be possible only if it is an elective surgery, but it may not be possible in cases of cancer. This is a post-traumatic defect, in fact, where the nose has been reconstructed by using a expanded forehead flap, where you put a tissue expander in the forehead and then later do it. Similarly, here also expanded forehead flap has been used, and underneath we have put a rib bone graft to reconstruct it. And this is how the nose has been reconstructed. In the scalp, small defects again can be closed directly, or you can use a free graft, particularly if there is a galea underneath, or there is a periosteum also. Still, you can put a free graft, or you can use local flaps, or you can use free flaps. So this is an example of what is known as banana peel flap. So this was the defect, and you just take local flaps from all around and cover this defect. This is a jury flap which actually we used to do earlier for giving hair in the male pattern baldness. And these are the different type of flaps which has been used. So this is a rotation flap which has been done over here, and this is another rotation flap, and this is 3 flaps have been used just like banana peel flap. And this is, you have just given relaxing incisions on both the sides to close this defect. And this is what is known as double rotation flap from both the sides. And here, for this defect, you can just do the advancement from the sides for the forehead. So these are the different kind of flaps which you can use. And if the defect is very large, you might have to use a free flap. This is an example of a ALT flap, anterolateral thigh flap, which has been used over here, as you can see. Now coming to the cheek reconstruction, for various zones there are different options, but more or less what we are using is what is known as cervicofacial flaps. and these are just like transposition and the rotation combination flaps which are used over here. As you can see here, that you raise a very large rotation flap and then are able to take this over there. Coming to the intraoral reconstruction, it will be in very small cases that you will be able to do the direct repair, or will be able to put a free graft or local flap. But most of the carcinoma cases you will be using either regional flaps or you will be using the free flaps. In fact, the free flap has more or less become a gold standard these days. Though earlier, I think the pectoralis major myoctonis flap, DP flap, forehead flap, so these were the workhorses. But nowadays, the free flaps in the form of radial forearm flap or the anterolateral thigh flap or the fibula flap, they have become a gold standard as far as the reconstruction is concerned. So I'll just show you that small defects you can use what is known as facial artery myomucosal flap, so which can be used for small defects. Submental artery island flap is another important flap, local flap, which can be used for small defects again. So this is a defect flap which is taken from here based on the submental artery, and you can close it directly. As you can see here, that this defect can be closed easily without any problem. In the regional flaps, the commonly used flap these days is pectoralis major myoctonis flap. So this is mostly used for giving the lining, but you can take it as a double petal flap also and use it for giving both lining as well as the cover. And when you are raising the pectoralis major myoctonis flap, which is based on thoracoacromial vessels, you must always try to save the deltopectoral region also. Instead of giving an incision directly over here, your incision should go around like this, so that later on, if you require a deltopectoral flap, you still have the option of raising it in case of recurrence of the flap. So this is just to show you that this is a pectoralis major myoctonis flap which has been taken, and you just take it underneath this, so that we just preserve this area for later use if required in the form of deltopectoral flap. In the regional flaps, just to name, not very commonly used these days, the trapezius flap that can be used. And this is, as I already told you, about the deltopectoral flap, which is based on the perforators of the intercostal vessel, and main perforator is the second intercostal vessel. So you can raise it right up to the midline over here without delay. But if you need a bigger flap, then you will have to do delay. Delay means that you just raise the flap initially up to here, just leave it like this, and then after about a week, then you raise the rest of the flap. So similarly, you can raise it further by doing the delay also. This is how you can extend these flaps further. So this is an example of a extended deltopectoral flap which we have used for giving the lining as well as the cover. So this was a patient actually where we had initially used a free flap for mandibular reconstruction also, but unfortunately that flap failed. So we had to resort to this flap. So regional flaps still become useful, particularly in those situations where you have sometimes failure with the free flaps also. Then this is sternocleidomastoid flap. The sternocleidomastoid flap again, is not a very reliable flap and not very commonly used these days. And as I said, for mandibular reconstruction, these days most commonly what we are using is vascularized osteocutaneous fibula. So this is a fibula which has been taken, and you perform osteotomies as per your requirement, and then you use a plate. Either you can use a reconstruction plate or you can use a mini plate also in these cases, and you can do multiple osteotomies in the fibula because there is a periosteal blood supply which is coming all around. So it's not depending upon the blood supply from the marrow, but it is coming from the periosteum. So you can do multiple osteotomies. And as you can see in this patient who was having a suspected sarcoma of the mandible, and the mandible was reconstructed, and then we had a small skin pedal also which was required inside, and which can be used even for monitoring of the flap also. Radial forearm flap was actually, when the microvascular surgery for head and neck reconstruction started, was the workhorse for the head and neck reconstruction. though nowadays ALT flap is more commonly used, and this is an example of radial forearm flap, very advanced malignancy. And after the excision had been done, you see the whole area requires reconstruction. You need lining inside, you need cover outside, and you need the bone also. These are the two bone ends. So in this case, we had taken part of the radius, and this radius was osteotomized, and then the bony reconstruction was done with that, and then part of this flap was used for lining, and rest of it was used for the cover. So this is the advantage of having free microvascular transfer, because you have large amount of tissues which are available, and you can use the you can have the composite tissues in addition to the skin. You have the availability of the bone also. So this is a case of CA tongue, and here the radial forearm flap again. This has been used. Again in this case the excision was done by Dr. Duggal, and then this was reconstructed by the So mandibular defects, they result into a lot of disabilities. Earlier, when we were not doing the mandibular reconstruction, the patients will have very, anti-gum kind of deformities, very bad deformities. But now, with the help of mandibular reconstruction, we are able to give them a good form, function, as well as the aesthetics also. And another very important thing which we are able to do with the free vascularized bone transfer is giving them foundation for dental restoration. Because once you have the mandible reconstructed with the fibula particularly, this is not possible if you are using a radius. But if you are using the fibula and even the lateral border of the scapula, you can use the osseointegrated implants in that vascularized bone. So most of the time we prefer to do it primarily, but sometimes one can do it delayed also. And these are various types of mandibular reconstruction. So if your defect is small, and if it is not a malignancy, say for you are doing it for adamantinoma, and you have a lot of vascularized tissue available all around, and your defect is less than 6 centimeter, then you can go for a non-vascularized bone graft also. But if your defect is more than 6 centimeters and the bed is not very well vascularized, so then the best thing to do is to go for vascularized bony reconstruction of the mandible. And of course, all these materials, alloplastic materials and allografts, they are quite superior as compared to the vascularized bone graft. But under certain situations, when the patient is not fit enough and is in a bad state, then you might have to use one of these options. So as I said, that this is only if the patient is not fit enough, then you can use either plates also, you can use reconstruction plates and just cover it with a soft tissue flap. But whenever possible and the patient is fit enough, the first preference will be to use a vascularized bone graft, because it has a very low morbidity and there is a reducible mortality. So this is a case of ameloblastoma of the left side of the body, and this is the free fibula which has been harvested along with a skin flap, and you can see this is a fibula which has been made after doing osteotomies in mandible, and this is the skin flap which is there along with that, and this is the very well settled skin flap inside, and the mandible also has been reconstructed. Similarly, earlier, whenever there was a maxillectomy done, so the only option used to be to give prosthesis. So nowadays, we have the option of reconstructing the maxilla also. And maxillary reconstruction, if you are just going to give bulk over there, you can use a muscle flap or a skin flap. But if you want to do the dental restoration and try and give a very good cosmetic result, then I think the best option is to make the maxilla again with the help of a fibula flap. So these are the various kind of maxillary defects, and depending upon that, you can use various flaps. And this is, as I said earlier, this used to be the only option, and still, of course, where the patient is not fit enough for a major surgery, you might have to resort to this kind of an option. So here, now in maxillary defect, the current concept is if there is only a soft tissue defect, you should go for rectus abdominis muscle flap as a free flap. But if there is a bony defect, then it's good to use free fibula flap, though you can also use the scapular flap and the radial forearm flap also. But the dental restoration will be possible only if you have used a fibula or even the scapula, but in the radial artery forearm flap, the bone stock is not as much that you can use the osseointegrated implants. So fibula is easy to harvest, has a very good dental stock. This is an example how you use the rectus abdominis muscle flap. This is an example of radial forearm flap. And you can sometimes use the iliac crest also. In fact, if very large defect of the mandible is there, then iliac crest makes a very good flap. Again, it is a free flap which is based on the deep circumflex iliac arteries. To conclude, I would like to say that lesions of the head and neck present with a multitude of defects, and the presence of eyes, nose, lips, and unique mucosal lining make reconstruction very challenging, and ideally the simplest option should be chosen first. And microvascular surgery has provided an excellent weapon in the armamentarium of reconstructive surgeons. So I just want to say one thing, that we always say that one should follow the reconstructive ladder, though, that you start with the simpler options and then go to the bigger options. But as far as the major defects are concerned, I think these days it's not entirely true, because our first option in many circumstances may still be the free microvascular flap. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the excellent lecture. The session is open for discussion. In case anybody has any queries.
I think Sir has explained it so well that there are no queries on it. I would like to invite our chairpersons to please honor Dr. Ravi Mahajan, sir. Please, sir. Now I would like to request our principal, sir, Dr. C.S. Bal, to please honor the chairpersons. Thank you so much, sir. We shall now go in the process of filling the post-evaluation form and post-test assessment. Please, all the delegates, it's a request for all the delegates to please fill in the post-evaluation form, and Dr. Ramandeep Khurana will be collecting it from you very shortly. And please fill the registration number in the post-evaluation form. And after that, we'll be proceeding to the team. Thank you so much.